So we're going to go through some discussion amongst the panel first, and then we'll hand some microphones around as well if you folks have questions from the floor. The first question now: what problems does Twitter dare to help businesses solve? And I'm also interested, what can you share us about where you guys are going in terms of what you're trying to do in the future? Just a few moments on that.
Definitely. So I think when you look at Twitter data and Twitter in general and how it's used in order to understand conversations happening about your business, where it grew up was really under the CMO org, the marketing use cases, advertising, and things like that. And that's a lot of where NetBase has also done some really incredible things to help people find what that insight is in the conversations that are happening on the platform, specifically to inform creative in your advertising, understand what your customers actually need and want, but also trying to derive how that could potentially affect your marketing campaigns and potentially how your marketing campaigns are affecting those conversations as well. And where we see things going as a part of the powerful aspect of that data is also how are there other parts of your business decision-making process that can also be influenced by social data. So if you think about product development or supply chain, things like recruiting even, where you can understand the conversations that are happening, say, about Samsung wanting to know the things that people are complaining about the iPhone so that they can optimize the next product Samsung phone that they make. Or there's really crazy use cases around a cough syrup company being able to find a new side effect to a cough syrup that's been out in the market for 80 years they didn't know about, which obviously is risk management along the lines of affecting how they think about their product development for moving forward. So really, a lot of the areas that we are focusing in is around how can we better enable businesses to use social data across their business decision-making processes on all the different verticals.
So Michael, I've got my mother's voice. I don't need a microphone at all. Michael, Western Union is a brand new customer. Can you just talk about the experience of why you stepped up with NetBase, which is great for us, thank you very much, and also what the onboarding was like and what you'd like to see improve in terms of how it gets used in your business?
Absolutely. So we're using a platform that shall not be named. Let's just put it that way.
I'll tell you later.
And we're really disappointed with not only the accuracy of the data that we're getting back, but really the level of service. And you guys brought us on, or we brought you on, but it was a mutual relationship, and we're now very happy. I think that what we're most impressed with is the accuracy and the level of deep dive the service folks can go with our business intelligence units to really solve those problems like we were talking about, that can build profiles that will change the way we do business, change the products that we develop, and really go to the heart of consumers and what they want and profile them to give us really meaningful insights, and not insights that come back every January from an analyst team. Insights that I may have at 8 o'clock in the morning, someone who's using their tool can give me an answer in an hour, and we can have a discussion, and that can change the shape of a campaign or a product.
Kristen, I know one of your recent Simpson videos went viral, so we all want that. It's kind of the exciting thing that happens and really has an impact. Can you talk about what you folks did to create that, how it worked, and how you got it to take off like that? That'd be interesting.
Certainly. So Camping King is a creative agency, like I mentioned. We focus a little bit more on actually creating the commercials, as well as the strategy behind them. What we did for YouTube, small medium business, their ask was essentially find a way for us to advertise to small, medium businesses that advertising on YouTube is really, really simple. So we were trying originally to look for real life businesses that we could use that are pop culture reference. That turned out to be really difficult with all of the actual people and things that we need to involve in these commercials. So we went towards the animation route. We used NetBase to identify those animated shows basically that are still resonating. That are like obviously Simpsons came right to the top. But what we found, interestingly, via net-based social listening, was that one of their top rated ever from the 90s episodes was Mr. Plow. And that's when Homer had a small business that he was basically running. And we used that episode to make a spot about using YouTube advertising in small businesses. Basically say, you know, it's super simple, and we were able to measure the reaction towards that episode and prove to the YouTube clients that it's still super relevant, even though it was from the nicest top 10 most loved episode ever. And that all came from NetBase, really. And then beyond that, after we developed the commercial itself, we were able to test through social listening some of the campaign elements, the taglines, different scenes that we wanted to use inside the commercial, and then measured for our clients as well, who were obviously really satisfied with it. It went viral, and it even trended on YouTube and Facebook's homepage for the full day that it was released. So it was really successful, and we probably wouldn't have come up with the Mr. Plow episode if we hadn't been using NetBase to identify, you know, Simpsons was great, of course, but what episodes of The Simpsons, what about The Simpsons could work for us, and that came 100% from NetBase.
Rob, do you have any kind of perspectives on how businesses will be using social in the future, and what you guys are doing to help folks get more value and have better impact?
Yeah, so I think we can actually speak to a lot of the things that you guys were just talking about. Where one of the things that resonated from what you said was that I can wake up in the morning and someone in my team can let me know something that's happening in the moment. And that's a lot of how Twitter has always been, but still continues to think of itself as being the place where live content, live conversation, and things are happening in the moment. And people are going there to understand what is happening in that moment. So like an interesting example of that was taken advantage of by Snickers was in this World Cup, the last World Cup. If everyone remembers when Suarez bit that guy, they within like 2 minutes, and there was a lot of coordination on the back end between legal, compliance, creative, like all this kind of stuff that was all happening in tandem for the World Cup. But within like 2 minutes of that happening, they sent out a tweet. It wasn't promoted or anything like that. That just said it was a photo of a Snickers bar and said, "You know what's better than Italian? Take a bite out of the Snickers." And like the ability for a brand to participate in a live moment is something that really can only happen on Twitter. It can only happen with tools like NetBase to understand those live conversations that are happening in the moment, so that you can react to those and participate in the conversation. Because that tweet ended up being I don't have the exact statistics off the top of my head, but one of the most successful like organic tweets that has happened, and then they put promotion behind it and all these types of things to really get out there. But that doesn't matter like 3 days afterwards. Like that's something where people remember Snickers in the moment as being like, oh, this is pretty funny. Maybe I'll like see the other things that they say when moments are happening. And that's a lot of the areas of focus that Twitter is really investing in. You see Periscope and a lot of these other places that we're trying to make it easier and lower the barriers of entry to people finding the stuff that's happening live that's most interesting to them. And specifically for marketing use case, better enabling brands to find the conversations of which they want to participate in and who their specific audience is actually participating in.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
It's about your roadmap.
Okay.
Tell us about your roadmap.
Okay, well I better have that.
Yeah.
Thank you. So about our roadmap and context of Twitter.
Yeah, just in context, yeah.
So short run, we're just releasing some new capabilities focusing on owned, earned, and sponsored analysis, so that companies can more easily assess the impact of their spend and their efforts around those different ways of looking at social. I think everyone here in the room understands the difference between owned, earned, and sponsored, so I don't need to go into that detail. But it seemed to us that it was really important to make that much, much simpler for folks to actually leverage it, both for agencies on behalf of their clients and for clients themselves, to assess the impact and the value of the spend they're making in those various channels. But for us, in addition to that, we've recently been asked by customers, and I'll use a specific example, One of our customers based down in Southern California, they're actually a medical device and drug company. Once a quarter, a group of 4 or 5 folks get together and they try and compare the team that does the NPS work, the team that does the customer care work, the team that does, strategy marketing, the team that does social, and they try and figure out what is really going on, because we all have a different worldview, and how do we integrate that and come up with a single view of the company, and how do we move that forward? So what we realized in the last 12 months with a lot of re-architecture work we've done in our platform is that we can actually take any kind of data into our platform. So we're just working with some development partners to begin to draw survey data through our platform, not necessarily to be the prime survey analytical tool, but if you want to compare the different data sources and consider those using the same techniques and the same mechanisms so that they're all comparable. How do I put NPS data and the data that often comes along with the Net Promoter Score data into one engine and have a look at that and see what I should do? How can we speed up that quarterly cycle so you could be doing that almost on a real-time basis and leverage the real-time nature of Twitter? So instead of taking 3 months to respond to something that's going on in the market that's beginning to appear in your NPS scores, you can be seeing it every day. And you can say, if I'm taking an action, is it working? And by the way, which channel? So our view of this converging media, this converging analytical channels engine is it should contain both social data and data that's coming from within your own organization as well. How am I viewing the world through my NPS analysis? So that's a big effort for us, in and alongside continuing to track down the road with all the other things we're doing, like adding precision to more languages, making the system easier to use, integrating it into different operational analytical systems within your firm. So that's the track that we're on. And thanks for the question, Michael. That was a good one. So, appreciate it. Let me just come back right to you. I know you guys historically have been kind of known for money transfer. What are the things that you're doing increasingly as you look at community and other ways of leveraging the business and changing the business to help use social to amplify that conversation? So what are you doing in those areas?
Well, first of all, we're listening. And what we're seeing in comparison to our competitors is something quite interesting. As a strategist, it's my job to boil everything down to a few words or into cartoons if I'm dealing with executives. I'm joking. And it's really interesting that for our brand, let me just give you 20 seconds of what we do. We send money across borders, sending money from Namibia to London. It's quite hard to do considering banking regulations, legal relationships, etc. But we exist in over 200 countries. There are 3 countries we don't send money: Iran, Iraq, and I think it's Somalia. So we got a pretty good foothold.
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, it's not Iraq. It is Iran, North Korea, and Kenya. Thank you for keeping me honest. I love it. So one of the things that we noticed when we did hardcore listening is that people equate the reasons they send money to our brand. So when we look at our competitors, I won't name who they are, we see a lot of red in your system. We see a lot of green when we look at us, and it's because people send money for education, for an emergency, for you name it, for family support. So we're lucky in that way, and I think that that's, what was the question again?
So how do you use social to manage those communities?
So for every one of these countries that we deal with, we have to make a decision as a matter of scale. Where's our largest impact? Where's our largest business? We use social to engage on a cultural level. So we may have an Indian customer or a Filipino customer that lives in London or here in San Francisco. They're part of a community, and we use social to build that community, talk their language, show them food, family, and culture from home. And those things, those boiled down essence of food, family, and culture that we can relate to our customers in social have been the most impactful and the most engaged upon.
So Kristen, being in the agency business, you're constantly looking for new projects to do with your customers and also new customers. How do you use social to inform those kind of efforts? Is there anything that you guys do that is interesting for us to hear?
Absolutely. From a new business perspective, NetBase is one of the best tools in our arsenal for sure. Usually what we do is try to look at our new pitch client from a hosted perspective, but the fact is that every client knows what they're doing on social at this point. If they don't, they have a bigger problem. So their engagement rates and the number of page likes, we need to know those things, but that's not our primary concern. Hopefully we pull those within seconds at this point. We use NetBase for a lot deeper learning. We try to understand how people are talking about them versus how brands talk about themselves, and identifying the gap in that conversation and identifying areas that we feel, based on competitive sets, current social listening data, where that white space is, and we can easily bubble those things up with social listening. Based on the way that people are already talking about our brand, we can kind of say, here's where you stand compared to your competitors, and additionally, competitive landscapes are really impressive for people in pitches as well. Knowing more about their competitors than they do is always really nice. But being able to say, you have an opportunity here. You may not have related to your current business that is huge and is completely blank right now from everyone that you're competing against. And this data and these insights come from being able to say, here's where everyone currently is, but here's where everyone's not. And NetBase can identify those spaces for us really, really quickly. And beyond that, even when we're looking at those spaces, we've identified those white spaces in our own vertical. We can go to the bigger conversation in the internet as a whole and say, hey, here are the brands that are talking about this. Absolutely none of them are in your vertical. And here's how you can use social media to enter this space and be relevant to your exact consumers. And then use NetBase to say, hey, here are your consumers, and here's what they're already talking about. Guess what? That white space we just identified is something they already care about, completely within their own universe and maybe not within the consideration of your brand, but you should probably make that connection. That's a really good space for you to be in. And we can do all this before we even start connecting their actual, native analytics, because you're a client of ours, to like a Sprout Social or a social analytics platform. We can do this without having access to any of that. So it's really, really informative for new business, especially for just identifying those spaces where we can say, hey, you already know your business and your vertical, but here's all the things that you don't know, hopefully, and here's where we can help you.
Thank you. Any questions from the floor that you'd like to ask the panel? Can I hand out a microphone if anyone wants to ask any questions? Are you so awed with the depth of answers that have come through?
Yeah. How many of you have personally had a tweet that had 200 retweets? Personally.
Oh, personally? No. My personal brand is not that big.
How many have had 500 retweets?
Uh-oh, this is going somewhere.
This is going somewhere. So I work for L'Oreal, and I get pitched tools all the time. And the question I always ask is, what kind of engagement are you getting personally? And so that's important. So as you, I think, keep this in mind, that when you sell tools, being able to master those tools and drive engagement on your personal accounts is going to be huge. So, my 2 cents.
It's interesting. We have several of our team members that run their own sites themselves in social. One of our team members runs a barbecue site, which is really interesting. And she guarantees she gets thousands of retweets. So she does it really, really well.
On the barbecue.
Yeah, on the barbecue site. But it is her personal site, so it's kind of interesting. So, any other questions? Well, listen, let me thank the panel very, very much. I very much appreciate it. And I hope you folks all found it